Hi, it's Anne-Marie from Charmed Life Therapy. Forgive me if I look down at the screen sometimes. I've decided to do this on Zoom today. I haven't been able to kind of sit down and get my head around all of the filings the last couple of days. Well, I've kept like pulling things in whenever I've had a few moments, but I've also been working, and it's quite a thing to be a hypnotherapist and to have to be calm and composed when in between times you're kind of reading this stuff and it's getting your stomach in knots and you think, I don't really want this impacting my headspace because I have to be really careful about my energy when I'm dealing with clients because obviously I don't want it to translate. And it like yesterday when this news about James Vituscka dropped, it was like a punch to the stomach. And I was like, oh, don't tell me they've done something silly. And I kind of read it, like really disheartened. And and when I say this, as I was saying to Joey earlier that I collaborated with the other day, I don't really care at this point. I have to be very honest about what Wayfarer has done or not done in terms of its defence. Because I just think they're just fighting such an uphill battle that they've to latch on to anything that they can. And that's not saying that that's okay. But I actually, me personally, I do not care because I'm going on the way these things make me feel. When I read these filings, and when I started this thing, I wasn't looking at the court documents. I was just doing like my emotional perspective on what I thought, based on what everybody else was saying, the I was trying to pick out the emotions, but then I thought, oh, this is getting so complicated. I'm going to have to look at the documents. And I don't know if that's been a mistake or not, but it's like do, I just keep coming back to if you read the filings from Manat and Wilkie Farr versus the filings from the Wayfarer side of things and Jed Wallace, everybody, basically that side of things, you just get a gut instinct feeling for yourself, I think, if you're in your right mind anyway, basically, about who feels more genuine. You look at the Manat and the Wilkie Farr side and all of that, and the James Vituscka side now, if you like, as well, who, if you're not right up, it's like all of us make these videos now, just assuming everybody's up to press with this thing, don't we? Because we think, well, you're either all in or you're all out, aren't you? And we can't understand people that are completely out of it. But yeah, I just feel about that side, it's all about attacking, which you could argue, well, they have to attack because they're the plaintiffs. But it's like in that wheedling way of they did this, they did that. I feel like this about it. It's so unfair. And it's like they're doing, I mean, they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this, inventing stuff. And the Wayfarer side is generally much quieter, which often frustrates us. But there's not that same sense of it and every time they do feel a need to kind of bring Blake into it or whoever into it, they don't attack. They do it well with like a sense of humor or irony or subtlety. It's not done in a nasty way. I don't think you can say it's like because I think like even the other day when Joey and I were doing that collab and there was that little portion of Wayfarer's response where it was about them responding to the motion for sanctions against Brian Friedman. And there was a little segment that more or less said Blake Lively is like a Hollywood so and so, so and so. Or it was alluding to kind of her place in the world, but it said whatever that means, and we had a little laugh during the thing because it's basically saying whatever. Who can understand these things? Who can understand why this woman is lauded for this, that, and the other? Whatever that. It was like, and it's like I think that subtlety goes by the by with like Blake anyway. So I think half the time when Wayfarer are doing these gentle subtleties it kind of bypasses Blake anyway, so I don't think it actually hurts. Whereas on the, I could be wrong, but whereas on the, I think Ryan might have to sit down and explain them to her, maybe explain how she's being publicly attacked, if you like. But yeah, I just I just think there's a real difference. And that's what kind of what I brought myself back to yesterday when I was feeling pissed off a bit. And then I sat down and I read his affidavit or his letter or whatever you want to call it, which people are pointing out isn't notarized. So nobody's witnessed it, signed off on it. No person of a certain standing has given it the once over, if you like. And then I was watching Without a Crystal Ball yesterday, and if I can figure out how to do it, I will bring up the slides and things. But all credit to her because she had a lot of dealings with James Vituscka at one point early in the year, around May time, when she was getting some of her exclusives about the text messages surrounding Leslie Sloan and what Leslie Sloan had or hadn't said, and kind of Without a Crystal Ball was ahead of the game. So at that time, James Vituscka was contacting her quite a lot, Katie Joy, and bombarding her with stuff. And at one point, he's clearly happy. He's clearly happy to give away his sources or to allude to who he's speaking to. He even mentions that Tree Payne and him are on good terms and that he has basically saying that he has access to Taylor, he's got an in there and stuff. So that's revealing your sources. So that in itself, I think, has to tell you a lot about James Vituscka. And I think that's what we're to look at here. And in a way, it's a good job that I couldn't comment yesterday, because then what happened was more stuff came out. Honestly, I thought, because I've worked this morning, I'm like, how am I going to face doing all of this? Because sometimes I just don't want to be touching this stuff. But so yeah, there was the letter from James Vituscka. There was a response from Wayfarer about why they should have to give ongoing documents, not have that cut off of, I think, did they originally cut off of their document production at something like December 24th? So they were given the opportunity by the judge to do a 2-page response to why they shouldn't give handover to Blake further discovery in sense of time. So it all kind of jumbled up on the docket. So there was a lot of crossing of everything, I guess. So there was this declaration from James Vituscka, and he attached text messages, which these things often drop on the docket and it feels like a bombshell, but when you actually go look at the stuff, it's the same stuff we've already seen, the same stuff we already know. It's just somebody's decided to have a different perspective on it, and that's basically what we're seeing with James. So we've had the Isabella thing where she's saying, no, you can't subpoena me. I'm here, but I'm not here. I'm ducking and diving. Contact my talent agent. We've had her, and we've had Vituscka. And I actually, Etienne, I actually feel the two of these are after a payday. I think there is a lawsuit potentially in the offing from either one of them. James Vituscka wants to sit on his laurels for the rest of his life and be paid, basically. There's potentially, in my mind, just allegedly, my own thoughts, my own riffing, I think Isabella thinks, well, maybe my career is effed, so I need a payday for the rest of my life too, to make up for that. I think there might be an element of that going on. And I do, my own personal opinion, again, I do believe it's all tied into Blake. I believe that James Vituscka is quite happy to play whichever side will give him a payday or an exclusive or whatever it is. And I feel like he knows there's nowhere to go with Wayfarer unless he sues them. And I think the timing is entirely suspicious because all of these things have had ample opportunity to come up already. There's so much on that docket. James Vituscka has been fannying about, changing his attorney and doing all sorts for ages. And this has come out at the same time as the Isabella thing and Wayfarer having to explain why they don't want to do further document productions. This is all tied together. You're not telling me this isn't coordinated. And Blake's side has come out very rapidly with a letter saying, oh, look, just while you're considering that document production issue, just look what James Vituscka has just popped out of the bush and said. So you see, Judge, Wayfarer cannot be trusted to hand over all the information. That's basically what we're saying and what's coming up. And I find all of that incredibly suspicious, that it's all merged at the same time. It's all more subterfuge, I think, to cast doubt on Wayfarer. And I think that's why it's really important we all keep up. And I was talking to Joey today, and I don't think she'll mind me saying, because I kind of get frustrated sometimes with people like Popcorn Planet. I get it. We should be impartial. If someday down the line Blake could prove that she was SH'd, we should hold our hands up and the rest of it. But I think at this point, when each of us has invested so much time in this thing, that you either are on just inside or you're not. It's like pick a side and go with it. Don't just hedge your bets. Stand up, stand behind your guns, or whatever a good saying is. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But you know what I mean? If one day I'm wrong about all of this, I hold up my hands and I will leave all the videos there, because I still think the videos had something decent to say. But like I say, I just think at this point, I honestly don't care what Wayfarer does. Because it's just literally dripping in unfairness, and I feel it right here. It's not in my head, it's in my body down here, and this is where I trust in what's going on. So I might keep pausing and stuff, because this is going to make me do technical things, and I don't use Zoom for technical things. I just use it for talking to people with my voice. But let's see if I can share my screen and bring up the right things. And I'm not going to go through all of them, every document, because it would be ridiculous. So let me see. I don't even know if it's any point bringing it up for you, because it's maybe not all that clear on the screen. But let's see what I can do. Let's see that one. Right, so we're screen sharing. So this is the declaration of non-party, James Vituscka. I am a journalist formerly employed by the Daily Mail. My responsibilities included cultivating sources in the entertainment industry, securing exclusives, and reporting accurately on matters of public interest. I was thrust into the centre of this lawsuit by the complaint filed by the Wayfarer parties and their attorney, Brian Friedman. I was the reporter that authored the text messages which appear at 193 of the Wayfarer parties' amended complaint in this case. So that's whereby he was speaking to Brian Friedman and Melissa Nathan and dobbing on Leslie Sloan, basically, and saying, oh, we had all these conversations and she was slating Melissa, but, not, she didn't say like, and now she's saying that Blake was essayed, basically. And it all really hinges on that. Let me just, no, I'll read through this first, because that might be easy. There's so many documents, and I didn't know, I hold my hands up, I didn't quite know how to fathom this, to do it for the best. And I might not do a good job of it, but I'm here and I'm trying. So I signed this declaration on June 5th. And we very much felt at that time that he was coerced into doing that, not necessarily just by the Daily Mail, but whatever pressure Leslie Sloan allegedly was exerting, either via Blake or not via Blake. But we didn't feel like they were hands off, put it that way. While true, the initial declaration did not include everything I wished to say. Before signing the initial declaration, I repeatedly raised to my former employer that I wished to provide additional important information and evidence. And the thing is, he's not produced anything new. He's just expanded on what he's talking, on what he's saying. There's no new evidence. There is no bombshell. Not to my mind, anyway. However, the Daily Mail did not allow me to do so in or with my initial declaration, so it was prepared and presented to me under intense pressure. The attorneys who purported to represent me in drafting the initial declaration were appointed by my then employer. I was implored to go along with their framing under threat that failure to cooperate would jeopardize my job and legal standing. That document appears to have been part of a coordinated effort to sanitize and reinforce a falsehood. While my initial declaration itself was not false, it did not tell the whole story. So he's been terminated by the Daily Mail after filing a whistleblower report. If you filed all companies have a whistleblower policy, don't they? So he should have a case against them. If he declared whistleblower status, he should have a case against the Daily Mail. Having severed ties with the Daily Mail, I wish to further explain my communications with Leslie Sloan, Melissa, and Brian Friedman. I believe that sharing the full context of these communications is necessary for the court and the public to understand the truth, blah, blah, blah. So in both the original and amended complaints filed by the Wayfarer parties and Mr. Friedman, and bear in mind that this guy does not appear in Blake's second amended complaint other than in a footnote where it's basically a link to one of his articles. Leslie Sloan is not in that. He's not in that. These people are not part of what's current in the case. And what he's alluding to is Justin's now dismissed case, which people just seem to tend to want to be keeping in to further their own narratives. It's like Blake wants, discovery details from Justin's dismissed complaint. It's like these people just beg a belief to my mind. So I am described as having said that Leslie Sloan, Blake Lively's longtime publicist, told me that Ms. Lively claimed Baldoni had essayed her. The allegation is false. I never heard Leslie Sloan make any such statement whatsoever. I never said she did to anyone. But he really confused the narrative, didn't he? Because I remember at the time making a video, and I will pull it up when I can. This message where it said, now she's saying Blake was SH. And the wording was very key, this idea of who is she? Which she are you talking about? There was like, this is what I'm saying over the message. It's nothing new. We were saying there was a problem with it at the time. It's already been addressed in a way. They've already had the knuckles wrapped over it in a way because the complaint got dismissed and it was mentioned that we've been here, done that. This is basically this guy wanting a payday as far as I'm concerned. And the timing of it, as I said, is very sus because it's like throw enough shit at the wall, isn't it? And some of it's going to stick. And I feel like it's coming from Blake that the timing and the organisation of it. Allegedly, my feelings is that it's coordinated with that camp. It has that feeling. It just makes you feel ill. I think that's the thing, and that's what you need to lean into out there if you're following this case. If what you're reading makes you feel unsavory, like you're reading something that you really shouldn't be reading, I think that's when you know it's not genuine. And their letter today, where they're saying, oh, look, Judge, just to draw your attention to this, that James Vituscka says this, and doesn't that indicate that the Wayfarer parties cannot be trusted? And it just makes I just find it really, really sickening. And this is when I struggle to make this content for you because I don't want to touch it. It just feels so bad to me. And I keep questioning myself, do I want to continue with this? I was saying to my client just now, what I'm having to do is like in my own downtime, I'm having to watch really random stuff, like, people that do the insane eating challenges on YouTube. I really like the guy Beard Meats Food because he comes from Leeds in West Yorkshire, where I do. So he goes all over the world doing these insane eating challenges. And he really reminds me of my nephew. So it's quite a comforting thing. And it's just such a random nonsense thing that it just helps me decompress, because I don't know about you out there, but I really feel, it's taking a toll on me. And bear in mind, it will be taking a toll on everybody that's in Blake's camp too. So they're not getting away with murder. So anyway, this allegation, this essay that I said it, that allegation is false. I never heard Leslie Sloan make any such statement whatsoever, and I never said she did to anyone. We've heard it, James. You've said it before. In my initial declaration, I said that I was the DM reporter that authored the text messages that appear at 193 of the Wayfarer's amended complaint in this case. I said my use of the term SA in those text messages was a mistake and that I meant to say SH. I also said that Miss Sloan never told me that Ms. Lively was sexually hitched or essayed. I stated that the Wayfarer parties and their counsel did not consult me about what I meant by my use of the term SA in the text chain. So he thinks that the tone left by his initial declaration was that I mistakenly told Ms. Nathan and Mr. Friedman that Ms. Sloan had told me that Ms. Lively was essayed. This is not accurate. What the initial declaration did not convey is the following important additional detail. I expressly told both Melissa Nathan and Brian Friedman in text messages on Christmas Day, when I had clearly nothing better to do, that Leslie Sloan never told me that Ms. Lively was SH or essayed. My text message exchange with Ms. Nathan and Mr. Friedman is attached as Exhibit A. Yet I've come to understand that the Wayfarer Party's defamation lawsuit, which doesn't exist anymore, against Miss Sloan and Ms. Lively was based in part on the allegation. And it was a tiny part. It was the whole concept of him was a tiny part of the larger issue. He was not the main crux of that defamation lawsuit. Was based in part on the allegation that Miss Sloan told me that Ms. Lively was essayed by Mr. Baldoni. Not only did that never happen, I told Ms. Nathan and Mr. Friedman in writing on December 25th that it never happened. I was shocked when I learned that these allegations in the amended complaint were based on a statement that was never made. I'd been very clear about that with both Ms. Nathan and Mr. Friedman. But the thing is, even if he didn't talk about essay, or even if he didn't confirm that Leslie Sloan said that, he had shared all of these details of what they were doing to defame Justin, basically outside of that. So it's not like it gets rid of this idea of that Justin wasn't being defamed. To summarise unequivocally, Miss Sloan never told me that Ms. Lively was SH'd or essayed by Justin Baldoni or anyone else. Melissa Nathan and Brian Friedman knew this as of December 25th. What she was telling him was that the entire cast had a problem with him, if you remember, that the entire cast hated him, that she would have the entire cast go on record stating what their problem, she literally said that, stating what their problems were with Justin Baldoni, and how he'd controlled the set, and how he shouldn't, as a man, he shouldn't be directing intimate scenes with women and not allowing them to have any say. And it's all a load of bull, because remember about Blake not wanting to talk to intimacy coordinators. Remember, Blake has a very active, very powerful working mouth. She's not a mouse that would do anything that she didn't want to do, especially with the director, who is not Martin Scorsese, not Oliver Stone at this point in time, not Steven Spielberg. You think she was afraid of saying what she felt to Justin Baldoni? That is utter nonsense. And it's so annoying, and I am getting mad with it. I'm losing all sense of, that sense of being able to grant her a little bit of leeway at this point, because it's just so nasty what is being done to Justin Baldoni and his team, from my perspective. So by filing a lawsuit it wasn't based on falsely casting me as the source of an essay allegation, Mr. Friedman, his clients, and those apparently aligned or acting in concert with them have caused immense harm, and I believe misled this court. This is me doing if that was hypnosis, emphasis like that, he almost needs to do ... misled this court. And that's how I do when I'm composing a script, to remind me to take a pause where the presuppositions are. It's like you're trying to drive into the judge's mind. Misled this court. That would be like me in hypnosis trying to get something across to you. Dramatic pause. Misled this court. They have damaged my reputation, cost me my employment, and undermined my career as a journalist. I submit this declaration to ensure that the court and the parties have a complete record of my knowledge. It's no different knowledge, love, and that my name is not further misused in service of a false narrative of those who conceived it. And without a crystal ball, I took some screenshots of her video yesterday, and this guy is all creepy. I wouldn't possibly do anything against Wayfarer. I believe in them, Blake's side sucks and all the rest of it. So he declares under penalty of perjury, as he did previously with his previous statement, but now isn't supposedly quite accurate. It needed to be expanded upon. So that's that one. So I don't want to accidentally shut something off, but that is his text messages. So we've seen this before. We've literally seen it before. This idea of easier to send you the screen recording of our conversation, which I scroll through slowly. So you can see that Leslie bashes Melissa, tries to get me to say that Melissa was planting stories in bad-mouthing Blake. She also goes off calling Steph Jones a liar, and never once did she mention anything about the SH. Here is the screenshot recording. I think part of that confusion over the she aspect, because he and Leslie Sloan were all, what they also shared was like Stephanie Jones was an element of it as well. So it was like, who are you referring to when you're talking about? Now she's saying it was a bit like vague, you know what I mean? But what I'm trying to get across to you is that all of this has really been addressed. So it's basically, why bring it back now unless you are in league with Team Lively, or you're after a payday. Basically, you're busy composing your own suit against them. So that will be interesting. But it's kind of sad, really, if that means that Justin is going to have more lawsuits crop up against him. But I feel like that's where it's heading, and that's why I feel like just now Justin has to go all the way with it, really. And I do feel like all of this is to disguise from the fact that the Wayfarer side of things is ramping up towards getting all of this kicked out, basically summary judgment or whatever it may be. That Wayfarer side was ramping up to this. I feel like this is desperate push to get something from nothing, you know. So this one up here is James Vituscka regarding Leslie Sloan. Many times she gives us information and then her client gets mad, and then she comes back and says that she never gave it to us and it's a lie. I had many conversations with her about Blake, and never once did she say anything about SA. I had a three-way call with her and Melissa, and she never said anything about it then either. But it's implying it as fact in a way, isn't it? He's kind of saying he's believing it happened, but he's just angry in a way because she's never said it to him. She's never given him that information. She maybe didn't have the balls to say it. Leslie Sloan, she told him plenty of other stuff, but maybe didn't quite have the balls at that point in time, because there was a period of time, wasn't there, where Ryan Reynolds was saying and we don't even know, allegedly, if those texts themselves were plants, where Ryan was saying, they were in Denmark or something, and don't comment on anything. There was that at some point or other. I'm not quite sure how it tallies in with this timing, but she might have been slightly loose cannon in a way, Leslie Thumb, but she maybe quite wasn't brave enough to put it out there, to put her name behind the SH thing in terms of Justin, but she was happy to say that the whole cast hated him and the whole cast had a problem with him, and that he was creepy in terms of daring to direct intimate scenes with women, which, how many male directors, what about Adrian Lyne with Fatal Attraction, and was it Unfaithful, and didn't he do the Demi Moore one where she got paid $1 million? Gone out of my head. Who would male directors direct females in intimate scenes all of the damn time? If we were, there's so few female directors, isn't there? We'd be waiting a long time for an intimate scene if it only relied on female directors being available. So that's basically it, really. Well, I might come back to it, but it's basically saying nothing new, but it's the timing of it that's suspicious. So that one can go, I think, and we can get rid of that one. So what have we got here? So this is the pisser, really, because this is, and you see, this to me is problematic, this whole first paragraph, because it starts creepy, is my feeling. Dear Judge Lyman, this is from Manat, isn't it? Yeah, Manat. So this is direct on the heels of James Vituscka doing that. Dear Judge Lyman, in light of the court's invitation for the Wayfarer defendants to address the extent to which discovery through the present is or is not appropriate by today's date. So they had 2 days to come up with a 2-page letter explaining why they didn't feel it was appropriate to do further discovery. Plaintiff Blake Lively respectfully submits this supplemental letter to highlight the relevance of Exhibit A that was attached to the just filed declaration of non-party James Vituscka. So it's amazing, isn't it, how they had this ready to go, this letter, very, very fast. I mean, I practically got them one after the other notifications. And I can't swear that this is definitely what it is, but it's entirely suspicious how on it they are. So Exhibit A is a text communication dated Christmas Day 24 that shows one of the central claims asserted by the Wayfarer defendants in this case, that Leslie Sloan told Mr. Vituscka that Ms. Lively was essayed by Justin Baldoni, had no reasonable basis. In fact, this false allegation was the pretense upon which the Wayfarer defendants sued Ms. Sloan, her company, and Ms. Lively via an agency theory for defamation. So what is dangerous here with all of this going on is that it opens up the idea of 47.1 again and treble damages and all of that. That's the danger here. So Exhibit A presents clear evidence that Brian Friedman and Melissa Nathan understood no later than Christmas Day 24 that their core factual allegation, it wasn't the core factual allegation regarding this defamation claim, was baseless. Further, neither Ms. Nathan nor any of the Wayfarer defendants or their counsel have produced the December 25th text chain, raising the question whether their insistence on maintaining a December 20th cut-off date is motivated by their possession of this and or similar documents. Accordingly, it's crazy this because it's already been dealt with. We already know about it. It's not a secret. It's not in hiding. Accordingly, Exhibit A supports Ms. Lively's request for discovery from the Wayfarer defendants through to the present because it demonstrates precisely the kind of evidence that the Wayfarer defendants and their counsel possess yet have concealed, post-dating their proposed discovery cut-off date of December 20th. And I was watching a bit of Perez today because obviously they tie Blake's side, tie him in with this because he pops up on some of the requests, one of the requests for production from Melissa Nathan. But as Perez has pointed out, Melissa Nathan was kind of dismissing him as no longer relevant, calling him a troll, and he hasn't been relevant since 2005 and all of this. So that's not somebody that, it's not language that you tend to use over somebody that was doing helpful things for you at that point. And that was in August 24. And what was he saying? Let me see if I can find it. On January the 21st of this year, there was a little text message backwards and forwards between Melissa Nathan and Tag, and it comes up in that. How do we contact Perez? How do we get to Perez? Meaning, how do we deal with him in any way? Because he seemed to be supportive and blah, blah, blah. He's gaining traction. So that tells you in itself that they haven't been previously communicating with him, that it's not an ongoing thing. And somebody literally says, well, maybe it could go through Brian or something like that. So they've not been communicating with him. And this is what he's presenting in his case in Las Vegas as well. And quite funnily, he's done another letter to the judge today, slightly addressing this and also reiterating what's going on in Vegas, but also giving his explanation for why he uses terms such as blackface Blake, plantation princess, Ku Klux Khaleesi, with Blake Lively. And he's been really clever about it because he's done a similar letter to the judge in Vegas and reiterating this idea of, I was not part of any ongoing smear campaign. I wasn't getting anything from them. I wasn't this like pet monkey or whatever it was. But it's opened up an avenue for him to bring that information in about where he's in, because a big part of Blake's thing in Vegas is that how insulting he is and all of that. And what the judge in Vegas is black. So it gives him the opportunity to say, Judge, this is why I call a plantation princess. This is why, and like linking in articles. you know, the video of admitting to doing blackface and a link to a plantation wedding details and all of that. So it's taken a joyful delight in doing that over in Vegas and doing a similar letter to Judge Lyman here. So you've got to take these moments of like relief where you can grab them really. So don't really want to, how many pages is this? I'll try and skim through it. As brief background, in 3 separate complaints, Wayfarer relied upon supposed statements from Miss Sloan suggesting that Miss Lively was essayed by Mr. Baldoni. So it's interesting this because it almost starts to make you think, or people that would like to think, that almost Justin created the essay allegations and SH, that it never came from Blake in the first place is almost like it starts to think. It's almost like Blake is now saying, I was defamed, there was this ongoing smear campaign. I never said at all that he SH'd me. It's almost like they're trying to brush that under the carpet completely. It's almost like trying to reframe it. Like Justin was the one that brought SA and SH into this. This is what it's starting to feel like. It's just come to me now. That's what it actually feels like. So, yeah, essayed by Mr. Baldwin, their initial complaint against the New York Times filed at the end of December 24 in California State Court. The original complaint against Ms. Lively filed on January 16. Their first amended complaint filed on January 31st. And you see, all of this is problematic to me because you're talking about something now that does not exist, that's done, that's dismissed. And you're trying to drag it back in because it suits your narrative now for it to come back in. It didn't suit you when it was live. It suits your narrative now to use it against him. And it just feels terrible. I feel like if the boot was on the other foot, this wouldn't be happening. There wouldn't be this kind of level of sabotage. So the Wayfarer defendants included undated excerpts of the text messages identified in Exhibit A, which left open for interpretation the timing and sequencing of events. 2 days later, however, Wayfarer filed an errata to the NYT complaint, removing the very text messages in Exhibit A based on a reporter's privilege. In addition, they omitted these same text messages in the 2 complaints filed before this court and instead included only the text message between Mr. Vituscka and defendant Nathan, in which Vituscka allegedly suggested that Leslie Sloan is saying that Ms. Lively was essayed. And the thing is, pot, kettle, black, only showing text messages that you want to show, basically. The irony is kind of staggering, isn't it? So Wayfarer relied on this specific text message in their New York complaints, which also has not been produced by Ms. Nathan or any Wayfarer defendant in discovery, even though it's cited in the New York complaints, as support for their allegation that Ms. Lively's publicist lied to portray Baldoni as the foe. She did. She said the entire cast had a problem with him, that the entire cast would rise to their feet and say that Justin Baldoni, words to affect that narrative where he wanted it to be all about the masculine element, didn't he? That this Baldoni, this guy, this man enough guy, this protector of women, you know, savior of women, whatever you want to call him, somehow when he got on the set of It Ends With Us, decided it was all about the male gaze and the narcissistic male perspective or DV male perspective, whatever it was. And that it had to be seen through Ryle's eyes and all of this, so that Blake basically was standing up in order to try and pull it back to where it should be. You know, she needed to countermand everything, you know, because she was literally saying in those messages, Leslie Sloan, really, that the women on that set had no power, and that was Justin's doing. She was kind of downplaying everything Blake was doing and saying. She wasn't even saying that, you know, admitting that Blake did any of those things. She was basically saying it was impossible to be a woman on that set. So she was portraying Baldoni as the foe, and escalated the false narrative by telling the reporter that Ms. Lively was essayed, an unsubstantiated accusation designed to destroy Baldoni and his reputation. The Wayfarer defendants relied upon this essay allegation to advance their defamation suits against Leslie Sloan and Vision. So they are literally bringing all of this in because they want treble damages. This is what all of this is. It's back to the money. Is this? It's very gleefully done. Is all of this? There's been so much going on in the background that's brought all of this together, and the whole Isabella thing and the rest of it. This, in my opinion, my personal opinion, and all alleged, is that this is very sus. I don't even want to keep reading this. I don't feel like. I feel like other people will be going through this for you, so you'll know it. So to summarize, Exhibit A confirms that the Wayfarer defendants and Mr. Friedman knew Christmas Day 24, or 3 weeks before they filed the original complaint in this action alleging defamation against the Sloan parties and Miss Lively, that Miss Sloan did not tell Mr. Vituscka that Miss Lively was essayed by Mr. Baldoni. But to my mind, it's such a small part of it, is that one message. Because literally it's getting past the point, isn't it? Where it's like, hang on, she told the world via the New York Times that he SH'd her. You know, he was defamed. There's no two ways about it. You can argue over a text message if you like. You can argue whether Wayfarer interpreted it or tweaked it to suit their needs. I would kind of argue that all of this is going on December 25th, 2024. They're in this situation where Wayfarer, where they're having to act fast to change the narrative, because much of the world didn't know who Justin Baldoni was, and we're all going with Blake Lively's perspective. You had the fires going on. It was Christmas. She drops a lawsuit on them. They're trying to move fast to counteract it all. Did they maybe see in that text message what they wanted to see? Maybe they were guilty of that. Or maybe there was a telephone conversation where different things were said, or there's different messages from James Vituscka going backwards and forwards. And I imagine there'll be a lovely letter that comes out in response to that letter. It'd be interesting to see who replies and what they say from Team Wayfarer. So I'm looking forward to that, hopefully. No pressure on them. But yeah, I find all of this really, this specific narrative about SA was plainly created by the Wayfarer defendants and their counsel. In fact, these communications remove any doubt as to Mr. Friedman's. Again, she's dying to get him dismissed out of this. It's either sanction him or get rid of him altogether, because I'm in danger from this man, Friedman. She can't, it's, you can tell I'm finding it impossible, can't you? That it's just so utterly frustrating. And it puts me off making videos because I don't want to make long ones, and you can't help but make a long video. So these communications also confirm that Wayfarer and Friedman appear to have knowingly made allegations on the basis of SA statements that they had no reasonable basis to believe were made when they filed each of their Southern District of New York complaints. But my question to you is, at this point in time, do you really care whether Blake accused him of SH or SA, or, you know, who said what? Or do you simply care about either of those allegations, SA or SH, is enough to ruin somebody's career? So should it have happened to him anyway? You know, you can argue the language all you want. You can argue the text messages all you want. That's just like the minor details to me, and people could quite rightly disagree with me. But to me, this is just playing with language in order to avoid the truth. It's just subterfuge. It's smoke and mirrors to my mind. So that's that one. So this is Wayfarer's 2-page response to why they don't think they should have to do extended document discovery for Blake. So this has gone in before, I think, before all of this other business that's now coming on top of it. So they're going to have to, it's got awful complicated, hasn't it? So they're going to have to switch it up. So let's see what they say anyway. On behalf of Wayfarer and all the parties, we write in response to the court's request to address the extent to which discovery through the present is or is not appropriate for the specific requests in docket number 6481, docket 678, as set forth in the Wayfarer party's opposition, a request for documents through the present would be overbroad and burdensome, and the obligation is disproportionate to that on Lively, who produced documents only through December 31st. If the court requires the production of documents post-dating the complaint, it must be an obligation limited to requests seeking documents related to Lively's claims that the retaliatory smear campaign is ongoing. This was the sole basis Lively preferred in her motion for extending the cut-off date and her deficiency letters, and the only allegation of a continuing wrong in Lively's complaint. With her reply, Lively provides a list of 64 requests for production for which she claims documents through the present should be produced, but only 13 of the RFPs on Lively's list are potentially relevant to the alleged smear campaign, and it notes which of those. Further, none of these requests are tethered to Lively's actual smear campaign allegation, which is limited to efforts by the Wayfarer parties to manipulate the media landscape against her using untraceable sources to paint Ms. Lively, the only plaintiff, as the aggressor. That's like saying, poor little woman, me on my own against all the big bad Wayfarer parties and their scary Brian Friedman, the only plaintiff as the aggressor instead of the victim. Docket 496-1. The RFPs are not limited to documents painting Lively in a negative light, and ask for documents concerning efforts to seed, influence, boost, amplify, or engage with social media related to the film, any Wayfarer defendant, the actions, Reynolds, who still seems to get his name in here regardless of having been dismissed, or the Lively Reynolds family, whatever that means, or companies, and without regard to whether the efforts paint Lively in a negative light. See RFP 38. As such, extending the cut-off date for these specific RFPs is not appropriate. So the footnote just above that says Lively's list only includes RFPs directed to Wayfarer Studios and not to any of the other Wayfarer parties. Thus, pursuant to LR 37.1, the motion can therefore only be granted, if at all, as to Wayfarer Studios. Although Lively claims equivalent requests exist for the remaining Wayfarer defendants, she is wrong. For example, lists all the numbers, were only propounded on Wayfarer Studios, and it ends with us moving and not the other Wayfarer parties. Docket number 554.2. It is not the Wayfarer party's burden to ferret through the requests to satisfy Lively's Rule 37.1 obligations. Therefore, Lively's motion must be denied as to RFPs directed to any party other than Wayfarer Studios. So she is basically saying you didn't ask for the right stuff. So in her reply brief, Lively newly argues that the remaining 51 RFPs, which cover a myriad of topics other than the smear campaign, should be produced through the present. She provides only 2 examples, neither of which warrant extending the cut-off date. First, Lively claims documents concerning any actual alleged or suspected harassment related to the film should be produced through the present. RFP 22 encompasses post-complaint documents concerning Lively's claims, which are protected from disclosure by the attorney-client privilege and work product doctrine. To the extent 22 also seeks information relating to other individuals' complaints made after Lively filed her complaint, the cited cases do not say this information is discoverable. In Lively's own words, prior complaints of SH and retaliation are discoverable. Docket 646, Part 7, emphasis added, citing Delancet versus Wells. The upshot of that case law, complaints post-dating plaintiff's employment termination have only a marginal bearing on a harassment claim. More case law, whereby court limited the production of other complaints to documents related to SH and SA complaints made by defendant company employees from the 2 years predating her employment through the end of plaintiff's employment. That's case law. Further, RFP 22 improperly seeks information regarding claims made by other employees unrelated to SH. As pointed out by another of Lively's cases, other employees' claims are only discoverable if limited to the same form of discrimination. Courts also cabin the discovery to complaints against the same wrongdoer, and do not allow all documents concerning those other complaints. Second, Lively claims changes in Wayfarer's. She's obsessed with the policies and procedures, isn't she? And the trainings and the all of the every little tiny detail of document. She claims changes in their policies and procedures through the present should be produced, but does not identify which request covers this subject, and neither of her two cited cases dealt directly with policies and procedures or provided any blanket rule. Case law cited that found that court found defendants' redactions related to subsequent remedial measures must be produced. More case law where court found discovery of defendants' reclassification of independent contractors to wage was germane to some of the legal issues. Further, the potential RFPs this category might relate to 67, 80 and 82 are not proportional to the needs of the case. They seek documents concerning personnel policies, any equal opportunity discrimination, harassment or retaliation training. I fail to understand why she wants some of these things, unless it's to sue him for further things like breach of not having watched the right training videos or signed the right bit of paper or whatever it is, or whether she's trying to make sure his insurance company gets a massive payout against him or whatever it is. It's kind of crazy to me, is all of this. And corporate policies, memorandum or internal communications concerning discrimination, harassment, prevention, retaliation or workplace safety, none of the RFPs are limited to Wayfarer's written policies and procedures regarding gender-based harassment, discrimination or retaliation. It is not the Wayfarer parties or the court's responsibility to rewrite Lively's requests. In sum, discovery through the present is not appropriate for any of the specific requests identified in docket 648.1. The Wayfarer parties respectfully request that the court deny Lively's motion to compel seeking documents through the present and deny the motion in its entirety. So you can see how you might be slightly suspicious that suddenly James Vituscka pops his head up and says, "Hey up, Judge, remember this?" And it's like, oh, because Lively's requests seem incredibly broad because we know she's fishing for any tiny bit of thing she can cobble together. And she needs to kind of give it some relevance in some way. And lo and behold, James Vituscka comes out of the woodwork. So, I mean, you tell me, you drop me your opinion, but I find it incredibly suspicious. I'm not going to go through all of this, but it's basically where Ferrer gets away. They still have to somehow find a way to subpoena Isabella Ferrer because somehow the fact that she's an attorney does not count. They can't drop a subpoena on them. And I'm not going to go through all of this because it's just infuriating, I think, really. And trying to say that Wayfarer haven't done due diligence in trying to serve her when they're in communication with her attorney, that she would rather they put a skip trace on her or contact her talent manager, a talent agent, rather than just accept service on her behalf. That somehow that's okay for them to say that, you know, you can literally be in conversation with her attorney and he doesn't have to accept a subpoena on your behalf. That it's easy to just write that whole complaint that they came up with. So Wayfarer just have to keep trying to subpoena if they want to subpoena her, basically, is the suggestion. And we've yet to hear from Blake's side as to whether they're going to release Isabella as a witness, I guess. Yeah. So both requests were denied. The Wayfarer parties moved fully to serve third party Isabella Ferrer alternative means. That was denied. But Ferrer's opposition to the motion and move for sanctions was also denied. And part of that was her arguing that subpoena is improper, burdensome, and designed to harass her. So I think we know that this girl has kind of had it with us, basically. I did cobble together a few video clips because I've not really focused on her all along, either in what I was saying on video or in what I was really thinking or consuming. And so I went back and looked at some of those clips, and I find that video clip where she's talking about the mole with Blake when they're discussing the similarities. I find her facial expressions on that video really troublesome now in hindsight. It's clearly mean girl facial expressions where she says, it was in my director's session, he goes, the mark, and it's like the mark. And her whole face and her whole body language and all of it in the way she spoke about Justin. Um, to my mind, it's not the way. Let me just come out and stop sharing for a minute. The way she phrased that, and Blake's the mark. It was all very mean girl, and to me it again highlights that if we were talking about SH being uncomfortable on set, talking about him in that way is not the way you would talk about somebody if you were the victim of SH being done by him or being made to feel physically uncomfortable as a woman. I don't believe that how she was in that interview when, she doesn't even say his name. In my director's session, it came up and he said, the mark, is it real, the mark? And I went, the mark, the mark. You mean my mole? And the way she did it like that. Again, it's that feeling of this is so mean, this is so hateful and hurtful. To somebody that, our side of things, and based off Isabella's own text message, it would seem as being rather kind and rather supportive of her. And it just shows you what happens when you allow yourself to be consumed by somebody else. And, I was looking back at that premiere dress where Isabella is in that very long floral dress. Is it Givenchy? I'm not sure. I think it might be Givenchy. And she's got like bracelets up to her elbows almost. And I think we'd seen those same bracelets on Blake at another time. And it's like the thought that went through my head, just allegedly in my own mind, is that I could see like them in a room somewhere or wherever it happened that she's going, and this bracelet cost this much, and this bracelet cost that much, and this bracelet was from here, and that cost that much. And just look at you with like two total cost on your arms, because the bracelets didn't go with the dress at all, did it? They were too heavy, too clunky for a delicate dress. And it's like that girl got sent out there like some, I don't even know what you want to call her. Like just like dressed up like a dolly, wasn't it? And actually infantilized, I guess is the word. That this girl can't even dress herself. She can't make her own decisions. It's like if you're somebody that wants to empower women, you might hook them up with a stylist. You know what I mean? You might say, I know a good stylist who would love to work with you, or I know a stylist that works with actresses your age that's really on it. But would you like take her to your house or your place and just I just feel like there's been a campaign of, look, it's almost like, look, with the bracelets, like this is the money that's available to you. And in brackets, when you go with our side of things, you know what I mean? That's my feeling on it. I don't know what you think, but that would be my feeling. Is there anything that I actually want to say? I'll just whiz through quickly because I've just ran these various things through ChatGPT just to see if it would, because I just thought, what is the idea, do we think, behind some of these things? And that's basically where it flagged up to me that this could be about. And we've seen, and actually Blake's letter came out after I talked to ChatGPT after it, and what ChatGPT said was, this is like the 47.1 danger and the treble damages if they can prove that kind of that language was tweaked to make it look like she said things that she didn't say. It kind of bolsters that argument in effect. Let me see, I'm just going to pause the video while I just look and see if any of that is relevant. 2 seconds. Right, I'm back again. So basically, I just wanted to have a quick look at my notes through that. So what kind of chat GPT said and I don't like to rely on this, but it just helps me unmuddle myself sometimes. Um, so bear in mind, this, like I said before, this Vitusca and Sloan thing is not now a part of Blake's latest amended complaint. So what ChatGPT kind of says is that what could they risk? If the judge finds negatively to do with all of this, so if the judge finds false statements were pled knowingly, risks include sanctions for bad faith litigation, especially if text show deliberate misrepresentation. But I don't think that will be a thing because we've already gone through this thing. He's already knows about this through Justin's dismissed thing and did nothing about it. Possible fee shifting under anti-SLAPP if the court rules Baldoni's claims were meritless or retaliatory. I think that is the danger as much as anything. It gives weight to Blake's and Leslie Sloan's idea of recouping their expenses. So yeah, if the court believes Baldoni's camp knowingly filed false allegations could trigger Rule 11 sanctions for frivolous pleadings, open the door for defamation or abuse of process claims from Sloan Vision PR, and possibly impact insurance coverage for defence costs if misrepresentation is found. So is she as well, through the use of James Vituscka, trying to say, get him in further trouble with his insurance company lawsuit? That would be my thought. It's like all trying to put pressure on, I think, and it's rather unsavory, isn't it? Let me just see if I can share this last thing, just if I can do it. There it is. Share that. So that is the text message that's mostly the problem one. And as I said, I think I grabbed these off without a crystal ball, so all credit to her. And I probably will put the link to that video in my description box here because it's a good video to watch because obviously she had a lot of contact with Vituscka during that time in May when it was all coming up. So I know some of you don't follow without a crystal ball or have personal problems with her, but if you want to get a different feeling on this Vituscka thing, then you might want to watch that video and give it a like, of course, as well. So that's it, really. This is the Vituscka text. She said the whole cast hates Justin. This has nothing to do with Blake. And that, as if like Blake has no, Blake was just this little woman on set that was under this powerful man's control, this man who shouldn't have been, you know, she already clarified, didn't she, Blake, that she didn't think this man should have been directing scenes with Isabella, didn't have a right as a man to direct intimate scenes with featuring women. So this has nothing to do with Blake. And now she's saying that Blake was essayed. Why wouldn't she say anything about that then? She knows she's full of S. She told me that the whole issue was that everybody hates Justin, nothing about Blake and Justin. She said it has nothing to do with Blake. Bold cookie. Try not to swear. I do end up swearing on these things. So this is just some screen grabs from that video without a crystal ball. So as I say, you might want to go watch it. So it's just some of the conversations that she had backwards and forwards with him. And basically he bangs on a lot about, she said this and she said that, and I did this, and I tried to go to Daily Mail, and I said, why aren't we covering this, and blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of victimy type language. Whenever I tried to do articles on Blake Lively to reveal the truth in December, I was shot down. So all along here, he's clearly saying that I favour Team Baldoni, Team Wayfarer. I believe them. I was trying to do stories in support of them. It was almost as if Blake's people were coercing us not to. My reporting kept being ignored. It's very, I want you to take on board the victimy language, the victimy nature of it. James Vituscka to Emma Powell. Hi, not to be annoying, but we keep passing on these exclusives that I am sending in on Blake Lively case and we're losing out on traffic. I sent in the info that were used. This is a journalist. I'm pretty assuming he uses Grammarly or something, but what makes me laugh. He called himself, and I think it's on one of these screenshots. He calls himself, "I'm being used as an scapegoat," a literal scapegoat. So anyway, if we don't do the Blake and Justin text messages, I'm going to go through the roof because it is going to be a massive story. It is their smoking gun. So it's not endearing himself to me, puts it that way, James Vituscka. On December 31st, we had a story ready and prepared on Blake Lively's text that proved she was a liar. Because my text appeared in the suit, we had to scrap the entire story. This was the direction of HR. I was furious. Our story was already approved by legal, ready to go, but HR shut it down, later calling me an embarrassment. I think embarrassment is spelled wrong there, isn't it? But I guess we shouldn't judge. I shouldn't be critical. I used to have this boss at work. Well, she was like the chief PR on site. And she, on her email, she had like a rider. It was part of the signature that texts have been done on my iPhone and may not basically make sense. Basically explaining that they would be brief, to the point, and there might be words out of sync. She has to just, it used to be just part of the email that you got through. Initial reporting in August 24, I heard that Blake was difficult on the set of It Ends With Us from chatter in my newsroom. Being I had a working relationship with Leslie Sloan, who had always been hot and cold with her info, I went to her directly for source information. Sloan often gave me source info. 99% of the time it's defamatory, aimed at celebrities that were going against her clients, which include Katie Holmes, Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Lindsay Lohan, and Chris Rock. During our conversations in August 24, she supplied me with info that was extremely pro-Blake, anti-Baldoni. In hindsight, this info was incorrect, as facts in the case are revealed. Nonetheless, Daily Mail published several exclusives using Sloan's info. So this is being provided to Katie without a crystal ball. So he's quite liberal. Like, you've got to give Perez credit, haven't you, protecting his sources and that. James Vituscka seems to be a bit more liberal and a bit more, let's see which side is leaning the right way, which side is more, God, my words are leaving me, useful for me, really. So basically just more of the same. They do not want the press of the film to be about him, which is why they are not speaking out until the PR tour is over. All along, it's kind of saying, trying to say that Blake's side was the side that was really protecting this movie, really protecting the message that Justin was this deviant man that wanted it to be all about the man. That every move they made was all about protecting the movie from the man, the director, that nobody said his name and the rest of it, almost like he was Voldemort or something like that. The real reason the cast of It Ends With Us shut out star Justin Baldoni, I was assured that it won't get out there anywhere and was asked to hold it so that it does not overshadow the PR tour, which is the exact reason no one is saying anything right now. Insinuating that people would say things once it was done, but as far as we know, only Blake has. They do not want the press of the film to be about him, which is why they are not speaking out until the PR tour is over. But then why didn't the lawsuit come until December? I guess you could claim from that, couldn't you, really? This has nothing to do with just Blake, but with the way that Justin treated everyone on the film. He plays a dark character and it is brilliant, but people are beginning to wonder if that is life imitating art for this. Implying that he might even be up for an award and things like that. So this is all between Katie Joy and James Vituscka, basically. So this film has sex scenes. So for a man to direct a film involving intimate sex scenes with a woman without allowing the woman any input is unacceptable. You cannot direct a film that is so personal about a woman dealing with an abusive thing without it's kind of beggars belief. You'd swear it was the only movie that had ever been done about this kind of thing. You kind of think back to Kramer versus Kramer. The Kramer versus Kramer just popped into my head, where Meryl Streep, came out not so long ago and says, that slap in the movie, why you can see a pink mark on my face afterwards, is literally because Dustin Hoffman walloped me. You know what I mean? Can you imagine Blake Lively in that scenario? think this is the entire, not that I'm saying that just Dustin Hoffman should have smacked Meryl Streep, but you know what I mean? Back in the day, there weren't the protections there is now for women on set. And these people that claim to be method actors and whatever, they're almost trying to say Justin Baldoni is this method actor that made everybody miserable on the set. He took control and insisted that they do things his way. This anger, this is the narrative they were creating. You know, when people talk about Justin Baldoni not being defamed, this is, it doesn't have to be about SA and SH because there were so many other things they were doing to him too, rewriting parts of the film in order to help it recover from his influence and things like that. But Colleen was this savior, rewritten under the instruction of Colleen, who has every right to, since it is historic. This is all coming from James Vituscka. This is all his narrative that supposedly he was hearing, you know. So it's quite clear he's been defamed to my mind, Justin. Just going after my ornaments and stuff again. So yeah, this is like just a further paragraph that Without a Crystal Ball had Katie Joy from him. Actually, on second thought, no, I have absolutely nothing to hide. And the only reason Sloane is doing this is so that she can get excused from a situation Stephanie Jones created. A situation in which a woman falsely accused a man of SH, knowing that this did not occur and also knowing would destroy his life. She did this to save her own reputation, which was tarnished by her own doing. Sloane played into this by feeding me false information to try and save her client. Sloane is a liar, and if I were to agree to these terms, all it would do is paint me as the dishonest one. It would also throw Nathan and Abel and Baldoni under the bus, and that is not something that I am willing to do. Not when they are the victims here. So he's changed his tune, hasn't he? What Lively tried to do to Taylor Swift is disgraceful, I think that will be. She tried to extort the godmother of her children to save herself from an image tarnished by her own actions and lied about Swift's involvement. Swift's father stopped Lively's extortion attempt on his daughter. I broke this exclusive this week. Swift's rep, Tree Payne, is my source. I am very close with Tree. It will all come out in the wash. In the end, I need to be on the right side of history. I value my integrity. So the next step is deposition. Let's do it. So this is James Vituscka. So I told my counsel I was an scapegoat. This was ignored. But yeah, so I felt better when I went back and looked at stuff because I thought this is why it's so important that we're not taking anybody at face value and going back and looking at stuff and being sure as much as we can be sure, let's say. So yeah, I felt better after I'd done all of that and just looked again at James Vituscka and should I or should I not believe him? And the thing is, I don't know. But the thing is, he certainly doesn't make me feel great about what he's done. I don't think it paints him in a good light. The timing is very suspect. To be clear, I have no intention of taking any steps that would go against the Wayfarer parties or undermine their case. They're being falsely accused of a smear campaign. If one had occurred, I would have been involved, but it didn't happen. That's why I felt strongly about helping Friedman defend against his claim. Though Nathan is accused of orchestrating the smear, the reporting would have come through me, and it did not. So he's also like bigging up his own involvement and his own importance within the thing. So that's a little bit narcissistic feeling trait-wise. I'm not saying he is, but it's very much that self-aggrandizement. I think he's had a certain delight in being a part of all of this, shall we say. I'll stop sharing for a moment. So I think I'm pretty much through it. I did have some notes as well. Apparently Blake's got a new movie now, The Survival List, that she's going to be making and producing. So good luck to all of those. According to Perez this morning, apparently Lionsgate, which don't Lionsgate seem to have, Ryan Reynolds seems to have Lionsgate in his pocket in some way, allegedly. I think that was more or less that. I think I've covered it all from what I can see. I think I've pretty much caught it. But basically, if I had a message right now for Blake Lively and all of them, that side of things, it would literally be, I don't really care what you find. I don't really care who you drum up out of the woodwork at this point. I don't care what your narrative is. You are not going to have what you could win this thing. You could make him pay treble damages, and it still won't change the damage you have wrought upon yourself. You're still not going to change public perception, the majority of public, I think. You know what I mean? You can make all the movies you like, you have to have our bottoms on seats and the rest of it. But it's not changed my opinion, is what I'm saying. Um, I'm still not buying what they're selling. You tell me, what do you think? I'm happy to hear your comments. I might try and hook up with Joe at some point again and go over some of this stuff because it's helpful to me because my work is quite intense. So to then have to come off and do something like this, which feels quite intense, often feels like a lot to me. And like I said originally, I just wanted to do short videos and not have to go through all the docs and the rest of it. But you kind of, if you're going to cover it, you kind of have a responsibility to look at some of the court information. And if you're going to present your own perspective, you have to at least do some research. But like I said the other day, my mind sometimes goes blah blah blah. I don't like this. I think my body, my psyche would just love it if I lived entirely from intuition and from my gut instinct. When my head gets involved, my head goes, no, I'd rather just do something than think about it. I'm a bit of a bugger me. I'm one of these people that, the instructions, the steps, you might have it written out and you think, fuck that and just, just have a go. I'm a bit one of those people. So sometimes I'm very aware that I should be more logical and read out the court docs and all the rest of it. But at the same time, my mind goes, blah, blah, blah. I know Justin didn't do this. So anyway, I hope that made some sense to you today. And it was just easier to try and do it as a Zoom recording than it was on my phone, seeing as it was so document heavy. But I didn't want to bore you with all the details, but I did want you to kind of have my perspective across it. Because yesterday it felt pretty crappy when he came out of the woodwork, and it just felt like, Caesar and Brutus and all the rest of it, didn't it? Like, oh, come on, who else wants to go now? The insurance company wants to go, Ferrer wants to go, Vituscka wants to go, who else wants a payday? It felt really like that, and it's not good. So I thought it deserved being done some due diligence, I think. But I'm going to sign off for today. Please do hit that like and subscribe and share and drop me a comment if you can. And I'll try and keep doing this for you. But keep your chin up, make your own mind up about these people. That is all I would say. All right, I'll look up at the camera for a change rather than myself on the screen. See you later. Bye-bye.